Next speaker is our own Orna. I'm sure you all know her. And she's speaking on image and text in Mongolia. Oh God, I'm going to make a hash this. Illumination on artistic and ritual practices. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much for coming to our last day of the conference. Okay, I'm an art historian of Mongolian art, and this is a project that I studied when I was a student here in this very university and department of art history, and it's still an ongoing project, hopefully turning into a larger manuscript. In discussing art, Buddhist art, textual, such as this one, for instance, textual and art historical studies continuously engage in debates of how to approach the visual and interpret the visual material. Buddhist scholars Donald McCallum and Bernard Ford, among others, emphasize ritual as the main force in the production of images and criticize the aestheticization of object as an application of Western lens, inappropriate and unacceptable altogether. Tibetan scholars such as Donna Lopez and Janet Gyatso further the notion that images in a Buddhist context constitute the life presence of the body of Buddha and serve as, quote, aid for visualization, end quote. McCallum took an extreme position by suggesting that, quote, aesthetic motivations were not primary in the production of religious paintings and sculptures, end quote. If images were made for meditation purposes, then how do Buddhist texts illuminate the art-making process, the diversity of depictions of various forms of deities with their complex compositions? David Jackson's early claim that artists did not have much freedom in painting has gradually proven to be to the contrary, as he himself shown with his recent publications on notable Tibetan artists such as Situ Panchen and 10th Karmapa Choen Dorje. How do texts address, if at all, or allow the artistic freedom in rendering Buddhist compositions? In Mongolia, a case of a later Vajrayana Buddhist diaspora, the eminent Buddhist scholar and Ihures abbot Agwan Khadov, of whom we heard yesterday from Batra, wrote extensively on making, inscribing, and consecrating images in addition to sadhana texts that typically enumerate formal properties of deities and details for rituals. Agwan Khadov, Gawan Kedrup, was a prolific writer whose 5-volume collected works include writings on artists, sadhanas, praises, hagiographies, devotional verses on various deities, instructions on various rituals, and commentarial texts on philosophic topics. Agwan Khadov was also directly involved in production of images. A monumental, here's Uhure, where he was an abbot. Monumental Maitreya image statue was also built in his Maitreya temple in the most prominent Buddhist monastery of Ihure. As Agwan Khadov's texts have not been really studied, this paper will analyze 3 texts to discuss how the Buddhist scholar addresses the meditative practices involving art-making process in images. As Eugene Wang has shown, text and images are not merely illustrations to each other, but collaboratively elucidate what he calls perceptual field. My main inquiry is how do they collaborate in illuminating the aspects of meditation, and how do they address the freedom of artists? A 19th century tanka made in Ihure depicts green Tara as dominating in the center of the composition and is accompanied by 21 Taras. The cult of both green Tara and white Tara was central to the mass conversion of Vajrayana Buddhism among the Mongols. An image of both Taras were frequently made in various media since at least the times of Zanabazar. Agwan Khadov specified the forms and rituals of Tara in his sadhana text on Tara. This sadhana, which, for instance, we don't have images by him, but we have sadhanas of Tara. For instance, on a green Tara, the sadhana that he wrote is a short and dense text that includes rich information that specifies stages in visualization, the formal aspects of Tara, the reasons for Tara worship, as well as details on physical aspects of the ritual. The sadhana begins with the ritual preparation by instructions to prepare the tormas. And hear what he says. Cleanse and wipe the house and your heart. Place the tormas in front of the consecrated image. Place them not in an awkward way, but place creating a beautiful assembly. Take a seat in a comfortable but awake position. Purify, then out of emptiness. I'm seated on a various lotus moon cushions decorated with a syllable tam, from which rays of light radiate, and I emerge into honorable Tara with a body of Mount Meru's emerald green. He also wrote a sadhana which describes the Tara, and reading this text of him, we can sort of see how the image of Tara was created as a radiant of 10,000 suns, as he was describing, 16-year-old, peaceful and smiling, one face and two hands, and so on and so forth. Besides that, he also writes about ritual of Tara, on visualization process, and elaborates how to emerge with Tara as one, and it clarifies that Tara as a live divinity will be residing in the image, as you see from this passage. Agwan Haidov does not elaborate on 21 Taras specifically, whereas the artist here in this image, for instance, works with several textual sources and traditions here. First, we see sadhana of Tara. Then we have the praises in 21 homages, one of the major canonical texts of Tara translated into Tibetan in the late 11th century that was revised and extensively commented on by a number of Tibetan Buddhist scholars, among them the first Dalai Lama Gendun Drup. And then the third source for this image is iconographic image of tradition of Nagarjuna and Atisha that was earlier partially followed by Zanabazar in 17th century, where the Taras are symbol in everything but the colors of their bodies and the flasks they hold in their right hand. And the fourth tradition that we can discern from this image is the tradition specifically of Zanabazar and Ihuri, where 21 Taras were sculpted in different media. Well, Agwan Haidov instructs praying to all the 21 manifestations. Agwan Haidov focuses exclusively on the central image of Green Tara, who is invited to purify, quote, evil deeds, obscurations, faults, and failings, end quote, underlying the Tara ritual. While this painting is not unusual in showing all Taras together as indeed a set, it is more common to see images of green or white Taras depicted with different entourage, as we all know. In another painting, for instance, this one of Green Tara from Ihuri, the artist does not follow the composition with 21 manifestations. Instead, we see clearly demarcated registers of Yadam deities, protectors, and teachers. This images of Green Tara is here composed to create another perspective of Tara, with Tara's Kula, family, the spiritual progenitors, Amitabha, Avalokiteshvara, as well as Buddha Shakyamuni, all in the top register, and the two protective deities, Vajrapana, a six-armed Mahakala, particularly favored by the Gelugpas. This composition with the Gelug agency in production is not supported by any doctrinal texts. And the painting brings a view of Tara where this goddess is not the only and the exclusive focus. The sadhana of Green Tara continues to instruct to concentrate on primarily Tara as the visualization praxis to develop samadhi, meditating on generation and purification of mind. This is not an isolated case. It is not uncommon to completely lack doctrinal texts altogether in the depictions of deities, even in so popular ones such as, for instance, Maitreya. In Ihuri's practice of Maitreya, Agwan Haidov was a key protagonist of Maitreya cult. In 1816, he is known to build a monumental Maitreya statue, known as measuring as 40 tohoi or elbow, and housed in Maitreya temple that was erected specifically for that statue. And he writes about it that it follows the architectural styles of Tibetan, Mongolian, and Indian elements. I elaborated about this image and about this Maitreya in Ihure in a chapter for Westner's volume recently. But in this particular paper, I would like to draw your attention that the Maitreya image that he created does not follow the images that were created by other artists in Ihure. For instance, this one, the standing bodhisattva form of Maitreya. Maitreya sadhanas do exist, and they are in Nishpana Yoga Valley and in Sadhana Mala, and they give a detailed depiction of Maitreya, but they do not include the forms that we see in produced by artists. For instance, these two forms, or this one. Rather, sadhana texts depict Maitreya as three-faced, three-eyed, and four-armed, and their representations were infrequent. Some rare cases we can see in early murals in Gyantse, in central Tibet, or in sites in Ladakh, specifically at 13th century Mangyu, Sumdachung, or Alchi. Dominating the interior of the Maitreya image, of the Maitreya temple, surrounded by 10,000 statues of the Buddha Taoist for longevity, here is a painting which comes close to the vision of Maitreya that was created by Agwan Haidov. He elaborates, he writes, because the texts do not exist about this specific form of Maitreya. Agwan Haidov writes his own texts. He creates his own sadhana text that you can see here, where he elaborates on specific doctrinal aspects he wants to be together aligned with his vision of Maitreya. And here specifically, he points again that the root teacher in this particular Maitreya vision is a Lama Tsongkhapa. Then he also elaborates on the meditation aspects of Tara and gives specific instructions how to visualize on Maitreya. Agwan Haidov's inclusion of Amitabha and Tsongkhapa in the imagery and in the text enhances Maitreya's ritual with additional meanings. However, the main essence of this Maitreya image is still framed by soteriological praxis with a focus on the central image. As there are no texts of this Maitreya form, Agwan Haidov composed a new set of Maitreya texts, sadhanas, which I mentioned, praises, ritual instructions, dharani instructions, that would serve as a verbal support for his physical engagement in Maitreya. Since Agwan Haidov was not quote-unquote artist or craftsman to build it, or hazo, the term that he uses in his writings, to craft and sculpt those statues, the architecture, and the paintings with his own hands, yet he was the mastermind, creator of Maitreya, and his architectural abode. What is then artist's position in such engagement in the production of images? And who is, quote-unquote, artist, according to Agwan Haidov? Agwan Haidov dedicates a set of writings to artists and benefactors, in analyzing the qualities of a Buddhist artist, whom Agwan Haidov calls Birtok Wampo. He dedicates a specific text, which is my main object of study for this larger manuscript. It's titled The Drop of Camphor, which quells feverish torment of faults, a guidance for benefiting Birtok Wampo, or I translate it as master painters. Here I have to mention that Lhazo, he uses two words to refer to artists, Lhazo and Birtok Wampo. So I see Birtok Wampo as a master artist. And in this text, he concentrates on virtues, attitude to, behavior around, and outcome of making Buddha images. It begins from the importance of building the correct attitude, citing from Kutagara Sutra. He says, there are 5 benefits for cleansing the old joyful Ananda's house. Your own and others' minds are purified, the gods are rejoiced, the beautiful works are made and accumulated, and having destroyed the body, you go to the realm of gods. As the text refers to specifically painters, his instruction of meditation and cultivation of mind is paralleled with the stages in making a Tanka painting. Each stage is a creative process, according to Agwan Haidov, and he instructs. First, while you're tightening the clean cloth to the wooden frame, one needs to think this way. My consciousness is like the cotton support for tanka, the foundation to collect various colors. Akin to this, may it become the divine seed for bringing into the field of Buddha's teachings and the power of the spiritual guide. Then at the time of taming the cloth with clean chalk and other materials, think that my ill-intentioned perception may not turn into knowledge. Instead, based on the spiritual guide's skill, may discipline it and turn ready for action. On the newly prepared surface, the painter begins, as he describes, charting a grid line. And so the first step in this on the meditation practice as the making of tanka is a grid line according to specific measurements or tick proportions. And then he moves to contour lines, making the first drawing. Akin the laying down the foundation by outlining the figures, the artist needs to develop bodhicitta as his mental foundation for a speedy achievement of Buddhahood. During the first line, Agwan Hado equates with a story from the Buddha's life when a rich merchant, Sudatta, known as Anantapindata, became a patron of Buddha Shakyamuni by building Jetavana's grove in Sarasvati for the Buddha and the Sangha under Sariputta's directions. Similar to Anantapindata, who was, quote, to establish his own golden house to use in Tushita in the next life, end quote. By stretching a line for Buddha's gondola temple, the artist needs to follow precise econometric proportions and grid line tick for his creation of a Buddha images as accumulation of merit arises from act of drawing line of consecration of construction Buddha's body. This act is definitely a simple, good opportunity to obtain and lead to collect immense accumulation of merit. End quote. Here, Agwan Hado highlights the importance not to create a crooked, unstable body and states that, quote, proportions are to achieve full, most beautiful body, end quote. Ultimately, this would keep the author and all the sentient beings on the path of Mahayana's path and fruit teachings. The next step is to prepare basic 5 colors as they continue the earth element to perceive the beauty. By virtue of that perception, he distinguishes how much of beauty and happiness his physical body and mental state contains in order to realize conceptually his impure mind and afflictive emotions, so that, quote, whatever able to do to purify the negative and generate a virtuous mind, end quote. The following step in creating process is the application of colors on the cotton surface. By applying the various colors, the bodies of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are created, thereby allowing the creators, as well as all sentient beings, attain the illusory body of wing element and 5 rays of light for the benefit of sentient beings until the end of cycle of life. Agwan Hado relates the stages of enlightenment and perfection of wisdom to the painting process as it enables, as he says, the accumulation of 6 paramitas. The artist who also needs to be capable of loading his wisdom as he collects the virtues and qualities during the painting process, when the precious qualities of deities are powerful and efficacious. Furthermore, bereft of his own faults of desire and aggression, the artist needs to be generous with offerings to fulfill hopes of the benefactor, lavishly decorating the tanka with gold and colors. So it's application of colors, and next one is satisfying the benefactor. Moreover, Agwan Hado reminds the benefits of engaging the patron in the production of the image, thus suggesting a collaborative effort that is often manifested in the final product, such as we saw in Tarab Tanka, but also serves as, quote, practice of 4 magnetizing means of attraction and gathering ways of winning devotees, end quote. He highlights the importance of proportions and the need of artists to rely on the canonical dimensions with the ultimate goal for beauty that corresponds to the Western understanding of aesthetics. In other words, the system of tik seems to have developed specifically with the aim for the aesthetic appeal of Buddha images or beauty, thus suggesting quite to the contrary of what Buddhist scholar McCollum claimed. The tik was the canon to build the specific forms of each class of divinities, meticulously detailing the measurements to, quote, construct the body support. And Agama Hadev suggests the importance of following the instructions provided in Sutra and Tantra literature. While he does not elaborate on what texts in particular should be consulted in making images, he devotes a specific text titled The Excellent Path of Deities of Entering into Meaningful Conducts, the various collected quotations from the sutras and the tantras that must be learned by artists and patrons, where he quotes from various texts from Indic sources as to prove the legibility of his claims and instructions for the artists. While learning from original sources as crucial as Agama Hadev instructs, yet he also warns the artists of being limited exclusively to the econometric measurements, and rather encourages meditation as the key creative process. Agama Hadev advocates creation by meditation as the key method, claiming that, quote, like cutting a flower while riding a galloping horse, the profound method by which the goal is achieved is by mere mental perception, regardless of difficulties of verbal and physical resources, end quote. This attitude recalls similar writings by an early Buddhist scholar in Mongolia, Sumham Ishbalgir. In his econometric treatise, Flower Rosary, Sumham elaborates on the econometric proportions of tik, and then he also treats, then he also treats meditation on colors as critical to for cultivation of mind. He divides the colors to primary and subsidiary and invites meditation on various hues in the process of painting. In depiction of white Tara and Avalokiteshvara, for instance, which are white, but according to Sumham Ishbal, the whiteness of these two deities are completely different. And he instructs artists need to reflect upon the white hues of snow mountains or white hues of full moon to perceive the distinguishedness of the hues to depict these two different deities. This attitude sheds light on the need, even the requisite, for richly nuanced creative thinking outside of econometric limits. As Agama Hadev sums up, creation in physical terms, such as painting of an image, and creation in and of mind, ultimately must merge as one continuous process. Art and art-making process is a part of the mind, of the ritual, where the artist and the viewer both take part as practitioners for the sake of seeking the enlightenment. In the case of Tara, for instance, the image is not only made for the viewer, who is oftentimes the patron. The Tara is also for the benefit and merit of the artist. In the case of Maitreya, the artist is both the one who crafted the image in physical sense, but also the one who designed the form in his own meditation in mind. And I would like to conclude. Two things can be deduced by this brief study. Agama Hadev discusses the creative attitude of artists is based on two aspects of meditation that involve verbal and ritual resources, textual and visual resources. As a viewer confronting a completed image, a tanka, or a statue, the practitioner uses it for his or her visualization praxis. As oftentimes the viewer is presented with a composite narrative, the visualization is also enhanced with the details other than the formal aspects of the central deity. This visualization ritual here seems to follow what is understood as dhyana and includes psychophysical stages of calming and concentrating. Here, the visualization technique is practiced for meditative absorption and sensory withdrawal as a point of the ritual and seems to refer to ekagrata, one-pointed attentiveness. The art-making process, on the other hand, is a different meditative technique that highlights soteriological practice of discernment, employing the individual's personality, circumstances, and knowledge. While both are practiced as staged exercises, the latter necessitated a structured knowledge that involved physical crafting, verbal texts, and mental training. In this light, the latter seems to refer to vipassana, the discernment on the nature of existence. The further study of Akahito's texts should illuminate if he indeed addresses two aspects of meditation, recalling Alan Sponberg's argument for two notions of guang, visualization and discernment, in Chinese Buddhism. In the text we briefly studied here, Akahito's persistent highlighting the importance of beauty suggests that aesthetical concerns were central to Vajrayana Buddhist art. The system of tik was a uniform measurement system for the purpose of creating proportionally correct, symmetrically balanced images, thereby meant to address the unstable nature of aesthetic value, as Charles Luckman argued about subjectivity in aesthetic appreciation. His unbiased treatment of both the meditation process and the aesthetic qualities of the image suggests that what scholars see as quote, image as visualization aid or aesthetic and art as separate based on disciplinary boundaries. And so this is not really helpful in our approaches then. The two are inseparable, and given the substantiality of the creator's knowledge rooted in the original sources, an image is a rich method that opens channels for rituals, varied meditation techniques, cultivation of mind, negotiation with the benefactors, and creative, open thinking, all possible at the same time in the making and looking at the image. The best way for us to study Buddhist images then, as Lachman himself suggested, is to avoid disregarding the aesthetics completely, but looking at the images, utilizing the approaches coming from all the disciplines together, and also reading meditation, stages of meditation in the textual and art historical sources. Thank you.